Which training camp battles do we need to be paying attention to for fantasy purposes? We're talking about that in today's video. As always, like and subscribe. We do put out content all year long. Help us get to 500. I believe we are 21 subscribers away at the time of this recording. It is Friday, July 19th. Training camps are going to be starting soon. Actually, I think the Texans have already started a couple of days ago, but by this time next week, most, if not all, NFL teams will have started training camp. And I'm excited, but we're going to start getting bombarded with news and best shape of my life stuff. And this player looks amazing. And that's going to influence how we draft. It always does. But in today's video, we're looking at some training camp battles that I think we need to pay attention to a little bit. Not only for you dynasty players, but for you redraft players as well, because I think it's kind of up in the air and it could have fantasy implications. We're starting off today in no particular order with the Chicago Bears and who their RB2 is going to be. Right now, I think it's pretty clear that DeAndre Swift is going to be the RB1 for that team. The RB2, I believe, is up in the air for the Bears. Obviously, to me, the two candidates are Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson. I don't know how much the team likes Khalil Herbert. He kind of lost his job last year to Dante Foreman, and I know he got hurt and stuff like that, but I don't think the team really likes him. They bring in DeAndre Swift. I feel like personally that it's going to be Roschon Johnson. I think Roschon Johnson and DeAndre Swift kind of make Khalil Herbert redundant a little bit. I think DeAndre Swift's a better runner than Khalil Herbert. I think he's a better pass catcher than Khalil Herbert. I think Roschon Johnson brings an element of tough between the tackles, bigger back that can pass block, things that Khalil Herbert can't do. So I just feel like Khalil Herbert's a little redundant. Travis Homer is also still there, but he's more of a fourth return specialist guy. Pay attention to this because I think it's important for fantasy football. I think the Bears offense has a chance to be a top 12 offense in points per game this year. And that means most likely that their running back's going to have some touchdown opportunities. And DeAndre Swift, even though he was healthy last year, has never been kind of the model of good health, right? So if DeAndre Swift gets hurt, the RB2 on this team could kind of eat, in my opinion. It could be really, really good for fantasy. Pay attention to who wins that battle in training camp, because I don't think either one of these guys are really being valued for the fantasy season, the upcoming season, and I think that may be a little bit of a mistake. For the Buffalo Bills, it's just their wide receiver room. How is this thing going to play out? How is it going to? You got to pay attention to these are the receivers that are on the first offense. These are when it's three wide receiver sets. These are the receivers and how they're out there. I think most people think it's going to be Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and Curtis Samuel. And I put down there and more, right? Because the thing with those three receivers, Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel at their time in the NFL have been majority slot players. Keon Coleman played a decent amount both out in the slot and out wide in college, but a lot of people think he's going to be best inside. Like he can't translate as well to an outside receiver, that he plays better as an inside receiver. So, and there's already reports of, him kind of struggling a little bit, which is okay. He's a rookie. My point being is all these guys cannot play the slot, as well as someone like Dalton Kincaid, who they're going to be putting out in the slot as well. All these guys, Kincaid, Shakir, Coleman, Samuel, they can't all play in the slot. And for that reason, I think there's a sneaky chance. We are drafting these three players like they are going to be out there on the field a majority of the time. I think there's a sneaky chance that guys like MVS, who I know it's kind of laughable at this point, but MVS brings an element of a guy who can play on the outside and stretch the field, or Chase Claypool or Mac Hollins. I feel like one, if not multiple of these players, while not valuable for fantasy football, are going to be on the field enough to make us frustrated because they're going to take away from Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel. So they need someone who can play on the outside. And there's a lot that goes into playing on the outside. Again, stretching the field, being that running clear out routes, being able to block and run blocking is very important. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team kind of runs their wide receiver core. Are they just going to play, let's get our four best players out there, even though they're not really, made to play on the outside? Or are they going to put guys like MVS, Mac Hollins, or Chase Claypool out there? We will see. Moving right along, we have the Indianapolis Colts. This one's pretty easy. It's the RB2 battle for the Indianapolis Colts. I think the favorite is Trey Sermon for Dynasty Leagues. He needs to be picked up. Redraft, maybe, but if he's the clear-cut guy, still want to shout out guys like Evan Hall and Tyler Goodson. Those guys do have a chance because, again, we're talking about Trey Sermon. The 49ers drafted him, in the 3rd round, and then they were done with him after a year and a half or whatever. So it's not like he has it locked down as the RB2, but I do believe that there's a little bit of value here. Any RB2, there's value. So, for dynasty players, I don't think people are really valuing Trey Sermon as like a strong handcuff, because I think whoever's going to be running the ball in this team is going to put up good numbers. We saw it last year. The Colts turned Zach Moss into a fantasy option. He was RB24 last year, all for the entire season. And he had that stretch without Taylor where he was awesome. So, keep an eye on that. It could be a little bit more of a committee, or it could be just go to one player like Trey Sermon. Next up for the Chiefs, I think this is kind of another underrated one, is the RB3 for the Chiefs. I think it's pretty clear. We have Isaiah Pacheco. They brought back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and they're probably going to roll with him as their RB2 just because he knows the system. But who's the RB3 for this team? Right now it's listed as Deneric Prince on the ESPN depth chart, but there's guys also there like Keontae Ingram, and Amani Bailey is someone to keep an eye on. Undrafted rookie coming in, and he is one of the best, if not the best, pass catching running backs in this draft class. The dude was amazing as a pass catcher in terms of like more of his advanced metrics and things like that. He caught 25 passes for 185 yards, but in terms of the advanced metrics and things like that, I think this guy's kind of a sneaky, could be a really good pass catcher, could be just like a little bit more of a complete player than I'm, running back that I'm giving credit to. And my point is whoever wins the RB3 role, if something happens to Pacheco, we've seen Clyde Edwards-Helaire not be impressive, very unimpressive and mediocre. So the team might just say, even though on the depth chart, technically Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the RB2, and he's the one that's getting more snaps while Pacheco is healthy. If Pacheco gets hurt, they could potentially say, you know what, we're going to try out Deneric Prince or Keontae Ingram or Amani Bailey. So keep an eye on the RB3 battle there. I think it's really, really up in the air. It's not like it was last year where it was Pacheco, McKinnon, and Clyde. Next up, we have the Denver Broncos, and this one's just their running room. Like, just really, really pay attention to what's going on here, because I think there's really good value potentially in the running back room for Denver from multiple running backs potentially. We've seen that with Sean Payton and his offenses. Just go look at the stats last year. Javonte Williams caught, I think, 47 passes. Samaje Perine caught 50. Jaleel McLaughlin caught like 30, 31, 32 passes. We're talking about like 130 total receptions that went to the running back. So I think multiple running backs can eat, and that's not just a Russell Wilson thing. That's a Sean Payton thing. Every year, go look at target percentage by position, and every year the Saints are like in the top 3 for percentage of targets going to running backs, during his Saints year. So I think there's a lot of value here. We don't know what to do with it, and it's reflected in ADP. I think Javonte Williams is going in round 8. Jaleel McLaughlin's going in like round 13. Audric Estime is being drafted like super late. But the fact of the matter is, in my opinion, whoever's going to lead the Denver Broncos in touches is going to have way better value than where their ADP is, right? Than where, it's going to be better than the round 8 running back. So pay attention to how they're being used. I really don't know what's going to happen here. Like, I know we're hearing about Jaleel McLaughlin as the number 1. I always think of they're trying to find that Ingram Kamara or Ingram Darren Sproles kind of combination, right? So to me, either Javonte or Audric Estime are kind of the Ingram of the offense. Jaleel McLaughlin, Samaje Perine, and another undrafted rookie that I like, Blake Watson. One of those guys can be kind of the Kamara of the offense, right? Not saying they're going to be as good as Kamara, but in terms of their role. So just keep an eye on that and who wins, because I just think when you start hearing stuff in early August, like maybe you should capitalize on that in Dynasty or something, trade for that guy. The Eagles is up next. The RB2 for the Eagles, I think it's interesting. Kenneth Gainwell is going to be the running back that gets out there, that kind of spells Saquon Barkley, right? If anyone's going to spell and give Saquon Barkley a breather, it's probably going to be Gainwell. However, how does this backfield look if Barkley gets hurt? I don't think it's going to be Gainwell just replacing Barkley because he's never been that type of player. They have a guy in Will Shipley that they drafted, I believe, in like the 6th round, and super productive college player, but some red flags in his profile for sure. Round 4, actually. Wow, I thought he was a couple rounds later. So he's definitely the favorite to kind of replace Saquon if they need to. Lou Nichols is there, who's another super productive running back, I think out of Western Michigan, undrafted guy. So just pay attention to potentially who wins that RB3/2 role for the Philadelphia Eagles. Moving right along, we have the New York Football Giants. It's another running back. A lot of running back stuff here. Who's the RB2 for the New York Giants? Is it Eric Gray or is it Tyrone Tracy? Those are the two favorites. I think a lot of people are a little bit in on Tyrone Tracy, mostly because he's new, right? He's new and exciting. And Eric Gray was there last year and we heard nothing from him, right? The fact of the matter is they were both 5th round picks, Eric Gray and Tyrone Tracy. They both kind of they translate a little bit more to kind of the pass catching back, both Eric Gray and Tyrone Tracy. I think Tyrone Tracy, honestly, how I think it's going to shape out is it's going to be Singletary, Gray, and then Tyrone Tracy is going to be used a little bit more as like that weapon, right? That weapon all over the field, and as a kick returner and things like that. So I do think it's interesting though, because, Devin Singletary is a nice player for sure, but like, it's not like he's untouchable. It's not like he can't, be replaced or something like that if someone's just better than him. So I just think, the potential for the RB2 here, there's some starting potential as well. Other guys on there, they have Jacob Sailors, Dante Miller, guys I've just never really, Jayshawn Corbin, so guys I've never really heard of, to be honest. So New York Jets is up next. It's another running back battle. The RB2 for the New York Jets, as my internet, I think, is failing a little bit. Hopefully the connection's coming through. But the New York Jets, their RB2 battle here is something that I'm interested in. Again, I think most people hand it to Braylon Allen because he has a little bit more name value than these guys. We've heard about him. He was kind of looked at as maybe one of the best running backs in this draft class coming into the 2023 college season and didn't really pan out. All right, had to get that sorted. But there it is. The Jets RB2, Braylon Allen. Is it a Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, or Israel Abanikanda? I think a lot of people hand it to Braylon Allen. Again, he had a little bit higher draft capital than both those guys. He is a little bit more in terms of the name value. Braylon Allen, we've heard about his name. If you follow college football, the dude's like a beast. The guy is just like, you'll see pictures of him. The guy's just a Goliath of a man. And so, but I think there's like kind of a sneaky competition here, specifically with Isaiah Davis, who was also drafted by the Jets in the 5th round. So a round after they drafted Braylon Allen, they took Isaiah Davis. So that tells you a little bit what they think about the guy. He played at South Dakota State. I think he kind of profiles as an all-around complete back. I think he can catch the ball. I think he can obviously run the ball. He runs a solid 40-yard time and things like that. So I just think he's kind of a sneaky, could be the RB2. And there's value, again, in RB2s. For the New Orleans Saints, we have wide receiver 3 for the New Orleans Saints. I think how their wide receiver room is shaping out is obviously you have Olave, who's the number one guy who's going to kind of move around the entire formation. You have Rashid Shaheed, who's more of a stretch the field type of player, can play in the slot, can play on the outside, who, if they do kind of play Rashid Shaheed a little bit more in the slot, who's going to be the other outside player that's playing 80% of the snaps. Now, right now it's listed as Cedric Wilson. I think personally it's more A.T. Perry has a little bit better chance, just a little bit more potential. Cedric Wilson has been in the league for like 6 years. He's 29 years old and, it never has more than like 500 yards or 600 yards receiving. So I think it's going to be one of these four players: Cedric Wilson, A.T. Perry, Bub Means, or Equinemius St. Brown. And again, these are players, especially like guy like A.T. Perry or Bub Means, who there's potential there. Like they could just be really, really good. They're going to be out there on the field a lot. If it's Cedric Wilson or Equinemius St. Brown, I'm not as excited about it. Moving right along, I have looks like 5 more teams for you. The Patriots wide receiver room is another wide receiver room where we need to figure out what's happening here. We have Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, KJ Osborne, Javon Baker, Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, it's crazy the amount of players that are there. I think there was a report a couple weeks ago where it was KJ Osborne, Jalen Polk, and Demario Douglas, actually, which is interesting because we've seen Kendrick Bourne, actually be pretty good in stretches the last couple of years and actually be fantasy relevant. But I do think it's something to pay attention to. If I had to guess, I think the only thing I'm sure about is that Demario Douglas, I think, is going to play in the slot. But the other positions, I really don't know. But why I say it's important is because what if Drake May is like the real deal and has like a really good rookie year, like a CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert-esque type of year? We're talking about the 3rd overall pick and a guy who some people think is right there with Caleb Williams as the best quarterback in this draft. And I think we easily dismiss these things because it's the Patriots for one, but also it's a rookie quarterback, right? And there's no established receiver here. But we thought the exact same thing with the Texans. It's the Texans, it's a rookie quarterback, and there's no established receiver. And they produced 2 in Nico Collins and Tank Dell receivers. Noah Brown for a 2-3 game stretch there. A really good tight end in Dalton Schultz. Like, they produced fantasy players last year. So what if the same thing just happens? It's a new look Patriots with a new coach and new offensive coordinator. Like, what if the same thing just happens with Drake May? And so I at least potentially want to take a shot on one of these guys just to see, like, oh, what if Drake May is the real deal? So pay attention to this wide receiver battle here. 3 more for you guys. We got the Raiders. Quarterback battle, you guys know this one. Most people do. It's Aidan O'Connell versus Gardner Minshew. Just watch out for who wins that quarterback battle. I think a lot of people are thinking it's going to be Minshew, but I don't know. I think Aidan O'Connell, like, if he looks really good, then they're going to let him start. It's not like Minshew automatically has this job. Los Angeles Rams, wide receiver 3. Demarcus Robinson is considered the wide receiver 3 right now, but Tutu Atwell's still there. Jordan Whittington, if you guys have been watching my Dynasty stash videos and things like that, he's one of my major stashes, like deep Dynasty stash guy that no one's talking about that I think could just be really, really good. And I think there's a battle here for this wide receiver 3 position. Yeah, we think it's Demarcus Robinson for sure. We think it's him, right? But the fact of the matter is, guys, Demarcus Robinson had played since 2016, and he's never had more than 500 yards. And last year, that 6-week stretch or whatever was the only stretch in his career where he was like even relevant for fantasy football. And he played with Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. It's not like he played with crappy quarterbacks. So I don't think it's like crazy to think like a guy like Jordan Whittington can take the job or something like that. So I think there's value there. Obviously we saw it, last year with Demarcus Robinson, even with Cooper Kupp and Nakua out there. Demarcus Robinson was like really good for fantasy football down the stretch. And there's the case of Cooper Kupp's old and has been injured the last 2 years. What if he gets injured again? Puka Nakua had injury issues in college. So there's a path for like the wide receiver 3 as of right now for the Rams, like being kind of relevant. And last up, I do have the Baltimore Ravens, and I think this is a very sneaky one here as well. No one really talking about who's the RB2 for the Ravens. Who is the RB2 for the Baltimore Ravens? Because obviously you have Derrick Henry there, right? And he's going to get the bulk of the carries and touches. You still have Justice Hill. You don't have J.K. Dobbins or Gus Edwards anymore. You have Keaton Mitchell, who is starting training camp on the PUP and had a major knee injury, in November or December of last year. And then you have a rookie in Rasheen Ali, who I really like. in terms of guy that I think can kind of be the workhorse if Henry goes down. And then you have like Owen Wright and Chris Collier, like guys, a rookie and a second year guy. So my point is, like, this is very sneaky. Like, who is the RB2 for the Ravens? Even if Keaton Mitchell is healthy, I don't necessarily think he doesn't profile as like, oh, this guy's going to take a majority of the carries. Justice Hill, we've seen over and over and over. He's just not that good. I know the team probably likes him, but Justice Hill is just not very good. He's played in the NFL since 2019 and on the Ravens, and he's never had more than 400 yards rushing or 85 carries in a season. Even last year when they needed someone to take carries, he had double-digit carries 3 times. They just don't really, they like him on the team, but I don't think they're going to necessarily hand him the keys to the backfield. So Rasheen Ali's a sneaky one because he's a rookie. He was very productive in college. He had over 1,350 yards last year at Marshall and scored 16 touchdowns, caught 28 passes. He had another year in 2021 where he had over 1,700 yards and had 24 touchdowns with 46 catches. Rasheen Ali, I think he could just be really, really productive if he gets handed the keys to this backfield. And to me, in terms of the players on their roster, if anyone's going to be the workhorse besides Henry, if he goes down, it's going to be Rasheen Ali. And again, we're talking about Derrick Henry here, who I know he's a freak and he's an alien, but he's 30 years old and he has an incredible amount of carries. So a lot of tread on the tires. So there you have it, guys. Those are some training camp battles that I think you should pay attention to before and during training camp. As always, give us a like and subscribe. Catch you guys all in the next video.